Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated if you're joining me on the YouTube channel. The new goal is 3,000. Thank you to everybody that got us to 2,000, but we're onward and upward. 3,000 is the new goal. Let's do it. Have you ever been in, especially on social media, have you ever been in conversations and you're going back and forth with someone, and then somewhere within the conversation, there's a red flag? You know, something that the person says, the way that a person decides they're going to shape a response, something that tells you they don't know what they're talking about. So I was having a conversation. With someone, and they clearly didn't see it my way, and that was cool. I don't mind that at all. But they kept saying things in their argument that I had said in a podcast of mine, and I just was like, okay, well, I said that. Maybe they just didn't remember that, or maybe they weren't focused on that. But kept on going, and you know, the back and forth just became them regurgitating stuff that I had essentially alluded to in my pod. And I was just like, okay, this person didn't bother to listen to what I said. They just heard what they didn't like and they responded. At some point in that type of situation, you're not going to have a healthy back and forth because they've already made their decision about how they feel. You're not moving them off that. So then there's a time to break. Get up out of there. I was on Twitter. I'll be on Twitter having conversations with people, and they'll say stuff like, we'll be arguing about a couple players and whether or not players are good, and then they'll quote stats. And so I say, okay, well, you want to quote stats, then what about these stats? And then they'll tell me, well, those stats aren't important. These stats are important. That tells me the person doesn't know what they're talking about, because everything requires nuance in sports. Everything requires more than just what's written on the paper in sports. Yesterday, I said that, you know, that I wonder if there's a diversity issue at the University of Georgia when it comes to the quarterback position. I said in there that I didn't think it was a race issue necessarily, that I didn't think people were racist because most of the team is black. But there is something going on where the black quarterbacks at that school don't seem to stick since DJ Shockley, which was over 16 years ago, or at 16 years ago. And so, you know, one of the things that, you know, someone brought up, and it was completely right, and I didn't dismiss it. It just wasn't the point. One of the things that you have to remember with the quarterback position is if a school is recruiting a quarterback and scholarship in a quarterback every season, there are going to be quarterbacks that get squeezed. So, for instance, right now with Georgia, let's say JT Daniels comes back for a 300th season of football. You got JT Daniels there. You have Carson Beck there, who currently is a redshirt freshman. And then Blake Vandergriff is going to be there as a redshirt freshman next year. Somebody's going to look up and go, oh, and they're going to bring in another recruit. Probably a highly touted one as well. Somebody's going to look around and go, I'm never going to play here. And they're going to transfer. That happens. That wasn't my point, but that happens. And so that's a reason. That's one of the reasons why the University of Georgia may not have had as many or may not have had a black quarterback run the ship in over 16 years. But that wasn't my point, because that's only one reason. And on its face, it would make sense, except we're talking about the entirety of the picture. So anyway, once you start having these conversations and you realize that you're not on the same wavelength as the person, that you don't, not even that you don't agree, because I like disagreements. I like the conversation back and forth. I like to debate. But when you realize you're not on the same wavelength, that what you understand about something is not what someone else understands, and it doesn't mean that they don't understand at all. It doesn't mean that they're somehow wrong. It just means you're not on the same wavelength. What are you getting out of that conversation? It's time to cut and run. For me, I can say something as simple as, you got it. But depending upon how I respond, will tell you a lot about what I believe, what I think about you as a person. So if I say okay, and I just drop it, that means I think you're full of it. Like, I think you're purposely missing the point. If I just say okay, and you know how you do it, okay, get an okay sign, I believe you're purposely missing the point. Now, if I think you're purposely missing the point and you're kind of a D-bag about it, I'll say, okay, buddy. And then that's it. No more from me. Not going back. Let you continue to run on. I'm not blocking you. I'm not muting you. I want you to be able to write all of the dribble that you write on. Go right ahead. I'm not telling you anything. Now, it may just be a situation where that conversation has run its course and I just stopped responding. Remember, we have lives, and I live outside of Twitter. I live outside of Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I have a life. It's a pretty darn full life. So sometimes you just live outside of it. That happens. So this happens in real life as well, not just on social media. There are times where you're having conversations with people and you just have to realize this is a losing conversation, not because they won and I lost, but because there's nothing to gain from it. How do you cut ties? How do you get out of that situation? Because all you're doing at that point is wasting your time and making yourself more upset, especially when you start realizing that you've been wasting your time. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than those conversations as a coach when you're talking to a player and you're trying to help a player out. Hey, this is what you did wrong. You know, you see it in the moment. You're trying to go. And instead of them just saying, yes, coach, instead of them just listening, they give you every excuse in the world. And you're trying to get them to the point where they understand, hey, man, this isn't about you. Hey, man, this isn't about you. This isn't about your excuses. This is simply about getting it right. All we want you to do is get it right. That's it. So if you just listen, you can get it right. But after the first and the second and the third, rebuttal, you just go, you know what, forget it. Give me somebody else. At least that's what I do. Give me somebody else in here. Because now my frustration level is getting to a point where it's going to be deleterious for everybody else, where I'm going to have to deal with everybody else in the same manner, and I don't want to do that. Oh, well, Coach Gene Clemens, you should be mature enough to where you can separate Emotions are emotions. It takes a little bit to get back to zero once somebody has you on 10 or once somebody gets you to a 5. I don't just go from 10 to 0. It has to come back down. Now, I like to think I get back to 0 a lot faster than others, but I still have to get back to 0. It's not easy sometimes. The problem with sports in general, whether you're talking about it as a coach, as an evaluator, as an analyst, as a fan, as a player, is you have to be able to speak to people on their level. If you come in and you listen to this every morning, or at some point you click on it on Twitter, on Facebook, YouTube, and you listen to it. If you go to Spotify and you follow the Talk Spicy on podcast on Spotify, if you're listening, that means that you like somebody that's going to give you their opinion, and don't ever let anybody tell you it's an unbiased opinion, because that's an oxymoron. How can it be unbiased if it's your opinion? If it's an unbiased opinion, it should be fact, right? Like, that's what I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to try to give it to you from the perspective of someone who's been at every single level of the sport, outside of professional management. Coach, player, fan, analyst, journalist. I've seen the game from every single angle. And so when I talk to you, the people out there who listen, I'm talking to you with all of that in mind. And there may be something that touches you. If you're a fan, you might hear something that's fandom. If you're an analyst, you may hear something that's analyst. And that's what we do. Our conversations with others have to become more streamlined, where we don't get sucked into dealing with people who don't have the same wavelength going. People who are not trying to understand what it is we're saying, but only trying to cause trouble, or only trying to purposely miss the point. When that happens, we have to go, nah, man, that ain't what it is. Instantly. And if you don't do that, all you're doing is making your life more difficult. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, you know what to do. Until next time, peace.